Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechphilly.com.
Well, Rabbi, we have a little bit of a different show here today. We're going to be talking about the Vietnam War and the Four Chaplains Award. We have two very special guests with us today.
All right.
We have the Todd Rosenfield, who's the president of the Jewish War Veterans Post 105. That's the Albany Post, and we also have the recipient of this year's Four Chaplains Award, Ray Sestak, who's from Glenmont. And welcome to the Jewish View. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's so good to see you here.
Maybe we should start from the beginning. What
well,
is
I wanted
the
to
Four
start,
Children?
Right, I wanted to start with Todd,
All right.
so that we could ask him, tell us about the Jewish War Veterans and tell us how the Four Chaplains Award came to be.
Good.
Well, the Jewish War Veterans is one of the oldest veteran service organizations in the United States. It was designed primarily not just for camaraderie, but to offset negative stereotypes of Jews not serving in the military. So this was one of the impetuses of why we even started Jewish War Veterans to begin with. Today we are here to show respect and honor through the Four Chaplains Award for Ray Sestak. The Four Chaplains Award is all about basically four chaplains who basically gave their lives on a vessel and gave up their life preservers to save their lives of other sailors on that vessel. So I think we're talking about the idea of...
So this was the Dorchester, the ship was
on
the
the
Dorchester.
Dorchester.
Right.
So
and this was in the middle of the North Atlantic or something? Or?
The exact area,
Yeah.
I don't know, other than it was chaplains, which are
Right.
the military Jewish, the clergy, but in this case, multiple denominations.
And they gave up the lifeboat so that others could be saved.
They gave up the life preserve vests so that others could be saved.
It's during World War II.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that whole thing was all about multiple denominations across faiths, basically the same purpose of helping the spiritual health of the veterans of this nation. And that's one of the things I like the most about it, because it's proud to be able to honor it from the Jewish War Veterans giving the award, but it's about faiths of all denominations coming together for the greater purpose of serving and defend America.
There was Protestant, there was Catholic, priest, Jewish rabbi, and the fourth one, I forgot who the fourth one
might have
but
been-
There's a plaque
Right.
on Madison Avenue, right by the State Museum, to the south side, I guess, of the State Museum, that has a commemoration of the Four Chaplains.
Right. And this
I always
goes
thought
on.
on the plaque it says Jewish rabbi, which I thought was redundant because,
Right.
the rabbi is Jewish, but
Right, but you never know.
Definition.
Nowadays, sometimes people need things spelled out for them. You never know. And this is celebrated, by the way, across the country. This is a national day of recognition, but locally we have so much roots with one of the chaplains having that died, having been part of affiliated with a Schenectady local church. So
The Protestant minister who died there, right, was from Schenectady.
Really? Was part of his local? I didn't know that ever. I knew the Four Chaplains, but I didn't
so there's
know that.
local roots to this.
Yeah.
Just on your note that the Jewish, just a little note that, Jewish people don't serve in the armed forces. Two of my families that are right now, their sons are right now in Afghanistan. So just, I don't have 1,000 members, unfortunately, but so that's a big percentage, really, of people that I know that are, that you're right, that's a stigma. We had people on the show before from, Jewish war veterans and.
How many people make
say
up the Albany Post?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
Approximately, is it 50, is it 100?
But if it was somewhere around 50 or 60,
Okay.
and we're constantly trying to recruit. So hopefully when
Right.
your family returns from Afghanistan, they join our post, or if they're around here. But we're always trying to recruit new members, and we do have a surge because of Afghanistan and Iraq of some new members that have also recently been commanders, past commanders, like Lance Wang or Rich Goldenberg.
And I wanted to now bring in Ray Sestak, who served in Vietnam. And, well, you're not Jewish, you're just about Jews fighting. But I just wanted to congratulate you on the 2015 Four Chaplains Brotherhood Award. So
Well, thank you very much. It's a great honor for me personally, and I have to say it's very humbling.
Ray, I actually heard many years ago, but tell me if it's true, that a lot of the Vietnam veterans, since they weren't treated honorably for the most part, I mean, for a lot of people in America, hey, listen, they're defending our country and your way of life, and so therefore they should be honored. But, there was this whole 1960s the stigma, why are we there all together? So is it true that it's hard to recruit Vietnam veterans? It's almost like I was there, forget it, I don't want to remember it anymore, and I don't want to, even be associated with, the Army or any veterans kind of idea.
Yes, in a single word, yes. Because of the way many of the veterans were treated when they came home. I know myself, firsthand experience. We did what we were asked to do when we were asked to do it, as did the other generations, but we weren't treated very nicely when we came home. So that hardened a lot of the Vietnam era veterans, and they kind of went off on their own. They tend to steer away from the fraternal organizations like the Vietnam Vets or the VFWs or even the Legions. Even today, there are so many that have a problem dealing with the monument itself, the memorial wall, the Vietnam Wall. They just
In Washington, D.C.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
You've been down there?
I have.
Have you seen people's names, the people you've known on there?
I did not.
Oh.
I did not.
Where did you serve when you were in Vietnam? Where did you?
Well, I wasn't what they call boots on the ground Vietnam.
Okay.
I was actually based in an Air Force base, a Royal Thai Air Force base in Thailand, and we flew combat reconnaissance missions into Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia.
Which branch of the
Air Force.
Air
I was
Force,
Air Force,
okay.
yeah, 1967 to 71.
Mm-hmm.
I actually did have my boots on the ground a few times, but it doesn't count for benefits through the VA or things like that, because such a tremendous number of the Vietnam veterans who served in country are treated at the VA for the results or the effects of Agent Orange and all of the other herbicides.
You don't
and
get
foliates.
the benefits because you were just flying
No,
over?
well, I've been very fortunate in my health, as opposed to a lot of the Vietnam veterans that were exposed to those chemicals that developed all the diseases associated with
Because of the chemicals that they
Yeah.
were defoliizing the
Yeah.
plants. Yeah, I know someone who actually in Schenectady that he had holes in his lungs, and the doctors said he was just fighting always for benefits
Yeah,
or something
yeah.
like that. So I know there was an issue.
So how old are you now?
I'm 67.
Oh,
I'll be
all right. Well,
68 this year.
that's wonderful. It's
I've been very lucky,
very
very
yeah.
fortunate.
So do you, tell me more about the humbling experience that this award gives, makes you feel. I mean, what would you be saying at your, at this Four Chaplains Award? Have you started to write your speech?
Well,
or?
no, there won't be a speech per se. I could probably name 10 other people that do so much more than I've done to help our veterans, but I'm not a person that likes the spotlight for things that I do.
I think, Mark, you should read the
Yeah.
resolution for Senate President. It seems like you were a little too humble because you've been
Well,
doing a lot.
Senator Breslin, the senator from the Albany and Rensselaer counties, he put together a resolution that passed on January 20th, I believe, says that you were a proud member of the United States Air Force from 67 to 71. You bravely flew combat reconnaissance missions with the 553rd Reconnaissance Wing during Vietnam War. The esteemed, he calls you esteemed, retired Chief Information Officer of the New York State Lottery in 2008. You retired from there and immediately offered your services to the Disabled American Veterans volunteer van driver at the Stratton VA Medical Center. So that's, it shows that you just don't stop after you retired. You give back quite a bit, too.
It actually started once I retired.
Yeah.
I found I had time on my hands and tried to think of ways that I could give back. And once I started with the DAV at the Stratton VA and interacting with folks of my own generation, And these were, for the most part, indigent veterans that needed transportation to get to their medical appointments and so forth. It becomes addictive.
Well,
You know,
you've logged more than 3,600 volunteer hours in support of veterans' needs, including offering your time both as a coordinator and driver to support the volunteer transportation program, Homeless Veterans Stand Down, and the Albany Memorial Day and Veterans Day parades. So, you know, certainly you've done quite a bit. You've further illustrated through your service as a ride captain with the Patriot Guard Riders. As part of your duties, you coordinated and direct motorcycle escorts for veteran funerals and supports the departures of veterans participating in the Honor Flight network of flights to their memorials in Washington, D.C. So how close are you with the county executive? Because this sounds a lot like what he's, you know, he wants out by the Anley home, this veterans home, and you know, how close are you with Dan McCoy?
Well, we run into each other occasionally. I actually saw him this morning, but we don't, you know, interact.
Yeah, I would think
that
he'd be
level.
your best friend, as you know,
No,
you're
I don't know
so
about that,
special
but,
within the, you know, veterans, and he's, you know, veteran,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's very you know, there should be a tie there, you know.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. No, he's out at all of the ceremonies and things that we do have that are veteran related.
Yeah.
You know, you can always count on him to be there.
Oh yeah, he wraps himself in the flag, that's for
Oh, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And
Well, it's, you know, it's not a bad
appropriately
thing.
so.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
interject for 1 minute. It's an honor to be able to be, as a Jewish War Veterans Post Commander, to be able to be given the award to Ray. I've always grown up with a fondness of Vietnam veterans. Unfortunately, I know all too well the stories of what's happened to them. And I believe their national charter, Vietnam Veterans of America, their slogan is, "Never again will one generation of veterans abandon another." Now that's a sad testament to say that across the country it happens so often that they were not treated and greeted with the respect they deserve from their fellow veterans of previous conflicts. And my experience with the Vietnam veterans when I came back was they were welcoming and gave us the benefit of the doubt and brought us into their fold. Yet they didn't receive that coming home. So they rose above a lot of things and went unrecognized for way too long. So the fact that this happens to be this award on this anniversary date to Ray and me being able to give it to him is kind of an honor for me personally, because it's way overdue for Vietnam and Vietnam-era veterans in general, and I'm just glad to be able to see this momentum starting to build, where we take some honest inventory of what we did and how we treated veterans of that generation, and what we do to try to make it right too.
And how did you choose Ray? What, I mean, how did you, he's not Jewish, you're with Jewish War Veterans, but how did you get to know him? And
I was not on the, and sometimes in some regards I just want to almost abstain from that decision-making process, especially as a post commander. I wasn't on the selection committee
what's the
that made
process?
that.
Who-
Usually a group of people meet, they kick around resumes. I've been to one of them before, and they talk about who did what. And really, it's not about whether anybody deserves it.
They all deserve
it's
it.
who we're going to give it to this year. And they almost all have the same background of selfless service, giving, rising above. Some years it is a veteran, some years it's not. I'm specifically and particularly grateful and fond that it happens to be a veteran this year. And I think the timing is right, in fact overdue, that it happens to be a Vietnam veteran.
So sometimes the Four Chaplains Award does not go to a veteran?
No, it doesn't always. Sometimes it'll go to a community person, an educator, somebody that's involved in their community, but it's not always a veteran. And that was a little bit of a surprise to me too, but that's that's the criteria.
Okay, well, never gave one to a journalist before, have you?
Not that, according to how I misremember, I don't believe so.
You misremember. I wanted...
Well, Todd, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you just on that note also, do you see it, well, you say the new generation really is more proud, the new generation. I mean, we were in Iraq from 1990, so you're talking about 25 years now since there were war veterans again in the United States Armed Forces. Do you see more of a pride compared to more of the Vietnam veterans when you see that?
We're just grateful that the Vietnam veterans helped set the groundwork to guide the public, because the public opinion can blow with the wind, but the Vietnam veterans made sure that the public opinion, they did their best to make sure it didn't turn against us, and that regardless of what you thought about the war, you didn't confuse that with the warrior. And the Vietnam veterans took a national effort to make that right, a concerted effort, not just a one-off. And again, we're grateful, because you know how these things can blow. Yesterday's hero is tomorrow's villain. And these things are important to keep the record straight on.
And this is the 50th annual Four Chaplains Brotherhood Award. So I just wanted to make that clear. You've been giving this out for 50 years. I mean, this is pretty incredible. So, Ray, tell us about the stories that you said you weren't so positive when you came back. What sort of stories can you reflect on?
It was a different time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, people weren't fond of the conflict, and those that served in the military at that time. You know, I hate to misquote anybody, but it was what it was. And again, you know, we were 18 years old, and we did what we were asked to do.
Right.
But yet we came home to a much different atmosphere than there is today.
So tell us, what was it? Employment discrimination? Was it something
No,
else? Was it people saying nasty things to
Yes.
you verbally?
Yes.
What would they say? You know.
Yeah, there's well, you know, I didn't have much of that exposure myself.
Okay.
But what I can say is we didn't like to travel much when we were outside of duty in our uniforms. We didn't
Right.
really want people to know that we were military because of you know, moving to the other side rather than saying, you know, good job, welcome home, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was just it was not good treatment for the jobs that we had to do.
And were your neighbor? I mean, did you always live in Glenmont, or?
Oh no, I'm originally from Cleveland.
Cleveland.
I enlisted in Cleveland and was discharged there.
Okay, so this is the same one where Euclid High School?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I saw that. I wasn't sure if you were the
Yeah.
same person. Okay.
Yeah, it's
I
like a
went did
suburb
some
of
research
Cleveland.
and I found
Yeah.
a Ray Sestak from
where is
Euclid
that?
High School. You're on classmates.com, by the way.
Oh, great.
But when did you come to New York State?
I moved to New York in 1977.
Okay.
And that's when I started with the state of New York
I see.
with General Services 1980. So it was, and I retired from there, as you said, in 2008. So.
Mhm. So what was it like working for the state lottery? Did you can't buy lottery tickets?
No.
You know, working for the state lottery.
No,
So
no.
just to make it clear, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that people know
No,
that.
my position there was always very technical.
Mark wants you to pick his number.
I
That's
see
all.
what he's getting at. Yeah, I
Everyone's
see.
been asking
I
him
see
that.
what he's
yeah.
getting at. But, you know, the lottery drawings that you see on TV, we moved out to Schenectady in around 1991.
Right.
Built a new building behind Proctor's, and their studio that you see the drawings on is actually there on the
Right.
first floor of that building.
Sure.
And we used to,
It's the first floor. It's you know, you walk right by to get to the back end of Proctor's. You can
yeah,
see the studio.
you can see
yeah.
it inside the windows, sure. And we used to send the signal down to New York Network and then satellite from there.
Right.
And, you know, great big technical thing. But the online network itself, they had at the time about 16,000 lottery terminals around the state. So, you know, it was usually the phone call at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning that this is broken or that's broken. That,
And you were in charge of that?
Yeah. Chief Information Officer, yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember in the 80s, Channel 10 had the lottery wheel that they would have people come in from around the state and to spin the wheel and win something. And remember, do you know what I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
Vaguely, okay. Well, that was a big deal for me because
Yeah.
of what I was doing at the time. So,
I didn't actually start with the lottery until about 1987.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
I wanted to, sorry to interject, but I wanted to add a brief point. I think it's an amazing story. Talk about overcoming odds. You know, I hear these stories of like a Jewish veteran that escaped Nazi Germany, came to America, put on a uniform, and went back over, and came back and started a business and got on with his life and became a successful in whatever.
Right.
And, you know, the analogy holds true. I'm looking at a guy like Ray, brought in at a young age, left high school, did his thing. Society fellow veterans, you name it, and in many cases mistreated or not treated properly. And here's a guy that walks into New York State Lottery, and he's a chief information technology against all the stigmatisms, and those certainly not getting hired, not getting promoted was a common thing of Vietnam veterans. So I just got to commend you. I got to kind of give the Jewish plug here for you and say, you remind me of a lot of guys I know, and I wanted to say that brings great credit on you, and it's an honor to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to take a current events. It's interesting because, you know, they say a veteran is the first person who hates war. You think, oh yeah, you must get in there and shoot them up. You know, that's a veteran. You know, now it actually is very interesting because my son showed me a video of the guys in Afghanistan. And I mean, to me, it's horrible being shot at. I mean, it's scary, and these guys are scared also. Do you have any personal opinions of war yourself? Like, you know, since you saw the horrors of war, or you know, your fellows in there saying, "Man, you know, just get out of this places. We don't belong there." Or, hey, you know, again, we're standing up for, like you say, you have a duty to do. You know, that obviously the higher up thinks we should be there. That's obviously why we're there. And you just follow orders and do what you have to do.
Well, there's so much craziness in the world today. You know, how do you identify the enemy, so to speak? You know, they hide behind women and children, and it's not as it was. It's very hard. There is no really winning or losing anymore. You know, we lose because we lose military lives. The young guys that are going over, guys and girls today. So it's not a good thing. You know, do I have a personal opinion? Sure. I don't like any of it. And I wish none of it would happen, but, you know, that's not the real world either. Somebody has to help the less fortunate. Unfortunately, it's us.
So you're not a fan of war and combat and all that?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
You're a peace-loving man.
I am.
Well, they say the people who've seen war are really the people that are more in a certain anti-war. You know, someone doesn't see it. Yeah, go get them, beat them up, shoot them up. He says, well, you know, it's a little easy.
He's a product of the 60s, make love, not war. Right?
There you go.
There you go. So I just see here also as part of this resolution that you serve as the Veterans Administration Voluntary Service Representative for the Vietnam Veterans of America. So you're actually now, well, you didn't want to wear the uniform when you first came back, and you didn't want to be, you wanted to hide that piece of your life, the 4 years. Now you're out there really waving the banner saying, yes, now I'm a proud Vietnam veteran.
Well, what that is...
Boy, how's that come 360?
The Veterans Administration
180.
itself has the group of volunteers, and they form the Voluntary Service Committee. And it's made up of you know, the VFW, the Legion, the Vietnam Veterans, all these fraternal organizations, and within those organizations, they select several members to represent that organization in the voluntary services meetings. They have quarterly meetings with the director of the VA here in Albany, Linda Weiss, and her staff, where they share a hospital status report with the representatives, and we in turn carry that information back to our organizations. You know, they need volunteers, they need donations, whatever it may be, or they plan events. So we carry that, you know, we're like the interface between our organization and the VA for volunteer service. So that's what.
But all of a sudden, there's this swelling of pride now that you're a Vietnam veteran. You're
Well,
not willing to hide it anymore.
You know, I don't know that it was so much pride as once I started volunteering with the DAV, and again, seeing members of my own generation that were much less fortunate than I, and seeing that we could in fact help them, you know, by volunteering and doing different things. I would carry that message back to my group and get them involved in different things. You know, simple things where we started showing a movie once a week on Saturday night up in what they call the 10B ward. It's the more controlled ward at the hospital because they weren't typically included in most of the events because of the atmosphere that it was. They were restricted movement. So we went to them. We went in every Saturday night and had popcorn and showed a movie, and and kind of let them decompress a little. We'd interact with them, and it just, in a lot of cases, made a world of difference.
Well, I know that for a fact because I know that in the Adirondacks, that there's a lot of veterans coming back because it's the mountain division. And I actually know a psychologist up there, a Jewish person, says that 50% of the people, the soldiers coming back, have issues.
Yeah.
And, that their job is to help them through that. So it's not only being hurt physically, you need a VA, but you need, even mental health.
Sure,
It's very difficult. People your friends getting killed, and et cetera, et cetera.
Can you talk a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder and what you see at the VA hospital that really, do Vietnam veterans still, the ones that are alive, still have PTSD? Or?
Well, it's not limited to Vietnam veterans.
No, it's not. It's Iraq and all the other wars, but you're a Vietnam veteran representative, so I'm just wondering, does anyone ever get over it? It's basically inherent.
No.
Okay.
I have friends, World War II friends, that haven't gotten over it, that had friends, killed in front of them. And I'll go to breakfast with a World War II veteran, and they come to tears, when they think back about it all those years ago. It's something you never get over because, again, you're 18, 19 years old at the time, when all your friends were back home, having a good time, and you were in the jungles or doing whatever it was you were doing.
This is seared into their memories.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the young kids coming back, they live in a world of technology today that we never had. They carry the device on their hip that lets them talk to whoever on the other side of the world, and then they're gone. They're overseas doing a tour of duty, and they're kind of away from that. They're doing what it is they do. So it's that much harder, I think. When we and our prior generations went away, that's it. We were gone. We had letters that you're always
I never thought of
sync.
that. The technology makes it harder. That's more difficult.
Yeah.
I never thought of it in that
They
sense.
come back out of the field and open up a laptop, and they're talking to their wife and children, and how hard it must be for them the next day to go out and do what they need to do again.
It's like the same thing that's a blessing is also a curse.
Yeah.
But then it's also you're more. It really is. It's. I hear you.
Todd,
on
what
that.
war did you serve in?
I was Iraq, and I was
what
Army.
years?
I was in 07, 08. I went in during the surge. I was 82nd, attached to the 82nd Airborne. I was a Civil Affairs Alpha Team member, and our area was predominantly in West Baghdad.
Which branch?
I was Army.
Army.
Yeah.
And so, do you see a lot of PTSD in,
I just, I can't speak for everybody, but I know that these types of scenarios where there's civilians all over the place, women and children are used as combatants, the amount of time you spend outside the wire with no line, no enemy line, it's just, today's happy town is great, and this next day the happy town blows up all around you, or people are taking shots at you or blowing up your vehicles. So I think that adds to the complexity of some of it. The whole women and children thing doesn't make it easier. The whole idea of nobody wearing uniforms, and the whole idea of having to get muzzled with rules of engagement while you're taking fire and you're not allowed to return fire. None of that's healthy. None of that's good to send anybody into that type of a war zone with those types of hands tied behind their back.
Okay, well, I think we're running out of time.
Todd, I also thank you very much for being a Jewish person, Jewish war veterans, and showing that Jewish people are good American citizens, and that's an important point. And of course, for your service to the United States, and also he's attendee of the Bethlehem Chabad, so I want to double thank him for that. And Ray, you're really worthy. I think you're a little too humble. You are worthy of having that honor. You don't forget. A lot of people could forget and do forget for different reasons. But hey, like when you had the time, listen, let's go help out my fellow veterans. So thank you very much for all your service.
And once again, congratulations, and I hope that you don't well up and tear up too much at the ceremony.
I'll do my best.
All right.
Thank you.